Record.
Yes. I'm going to call this to order. The recording and or broadcast of this meeting is being made at the direction of the board, which may include capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. Can you roll call? Vladimir? Here. Jessica?
Here.
Brian? Here. Shelley?
Here.
And I'm here too. So we're all here. Let's do the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Does any board member have any comments on the agenda? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. Thank you, Vladimir. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Vladimir, seconded by Shelley. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 5-0. We did meet the session part of this, and no action is taken.
Sure, just a quick update. Wanted to let you know that we are responding to the heat advisory that's currently in place right now. I chatted with principals last night before returning, and so we have moved PE indoors. We are offering indoor lunch opportunities and recess opportunities depending on the actual temperature. And just this afternoon, the CDE finally released some heat advisory information. And if you are a map person, they now have a heat risk map through the National Weather Service. That is just an interesting little interactive map. You can put in your zip code and get the level of heat risk and precautions. So we're working with principals on that, and it looks like through Thursday, we will need to be in kind of that higher risk area. So wanted to let you know we're taking care of that, taking care of kids. And that I sent out to you, we're going to resume school visits next week. And so look at your calendars and let me know if you are available. I'd like to take you in groups of 2 and we'll get out and see some teaching and learning in action, which will be really great. I know our teachers will be excited to have you back in classrooms and on campus around the district. So we'll make that a regular thing as we move forward for the year. That's it.
Is there or back to school nights this week or is that last
We
week?
were all last week. Yep, very well attended.
Thank you. Consent calendar. Any board members have any comments on the consent calendar item? None? Can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar? So moved. Thank you, Vladimir. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Great. Moved by Vladimir, second by Shelley. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposing? Don't hear any. So employees request to address the board. Chris?
Hello, everyone. So today I was meeting with Sandra and we were talking about one of the kind of goals that she had for this year, which was empowering our teachers. And I was really happy to see that at the beginning of the year, because one of the reasons I chose to work here was because I felt like it was going to be a challenge intellectually, and delivering for all students requires a lot of mental agility, and our teachers do that all the time. And so to see that come from really high up was great. And I loved that. And one of my goals this year as the president is to empower teachers in another way, and to make them feel more confident coming and speaking to their administrators directly. As LATA president, I often get emails with different issues. And a lot of times I feel that there are issues that could potentially be resolved by having that open line of communication. And I don't think that it's a fault of our teachers or our administrators that it's become this way. I think that COVID exacerbated this a little bit because everyone was isolated in a way, so you couldn't just pop into your principal's office and say, hey, like, you know, I'm dealing with this. But I really want to try and empower teachers to be able to have those conversations openly and not feel that they can't. Because I think if we're going to ask teachers to do all of the mental work that it takes to work here, we also want to make sure that they feel heard and that they feel like they have a safe space that they can come in and express how they feel and their opinions. And so, you know, I think that that kind of piggybacks really nicely off what Sandra's trying to do. And I think it's a nice way to kind of bring the two together. And that's all I have for tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've not seen one from the. Myself, those. See, yep. Move on. Thanks. To provide public comments on agenda items, speaker cards are to be submitted to the superintendent. Speaker cards will not be accepted once public comment begins. Your name will be announced once your turn to speak. Community comments. This time is reserved for members of the public to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. The board is not begin to discuss or take action on non-agendized items, except to instruct the superintendent to review the matter further, report back to the board at a subsequent meeting, or place the matter on a future agenda. The board may make a brief comment or ask a clarifying question of everybody speaking. Not seeing anyone rushing to the podium to speak, we'll move on. Action discussion items, public hearing, sufficiency of instructional materials. I'm going to say that correctly next time around.
Annually, the school boards are required to hold an annual public hearing to make a determination through resolution that all of our students have appropriate textbooks and instructional materials. So this evening we have a public hearing and a resolution before you.
If anyone would like to provide public comment on this item, please fill out a speaker card. Public hearing is now open. With the presentation, you'd like to do? Is that your presentation? You did your whole presentation, great. I think we're covered, right? All materials. I have no request to speak, so the public hearing is now closed. For discussion. We covered this last time, and everything was covered in the issue. Resolution 22/23-01, sufficiency of instructional materials. The board of trustees will consider approving a resolution assuring that each student in the district is provided with sufficient textbooks and instructional materials. Anyone would like to provide public comments? Presentation we covered to the last meeting. Any questions for the board? Or Dr. Bosco? None. But can I ask for a motion to approve resolution 22/23-03, sufficiency of instructional materials? So moved. Thank you, Vladimir. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Vladimir and seconded by Shelley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hearing no objections, it passes 5-0. Financial updates.
Okay, tonight we're here, this is a requirement every year to have the Board of Trustees approve closing of the books. And with good news, and I really want to acknowledge Larry who's here. She's going to present a couple slides. So much of the work is done by Lario and the business staff. And while a lot of people are on summer vacation, the business staff, we work year round and they're in the office really every day during the summer. A couple of people took a couple of vacations here or there, but mostly they're working every day to get the books closed. And it's really accounting for all the expenses and all the revenue and making sure it's calculated and put in the right budget streams for really everything we do, from salaries all the way down to buying metals and paper. So it's pretty important that it gets done. A lot of the work though is behind the scenes, and we had a lot of new staff. Farhad, who is our accounts payable, went to purchasing. We just hired Caroline Garcia, who's our accounts payable, accounts receivable person. So Larry, on top of helping with Jason with food services, is also training new staff members. So Larry has been very busy, and we want Larry to go on vacation soon. But I want to acknowledge Larry. She's been just so helpful and really helping get our books closed. It's really a testament to her hard work and also getting her team. Next year, we figure like if everybody's on our team is there, and we'll all be together for a full year, it might be much easier, and we'll have a year of food services in our belt. But thank you to Lario. It is an action item to recommend approval, and then once this gets approved, we'll file it with the County Office of Education. They will review it for accuracy, making sure it's correct, and then they will send it to the state Board of Education. So Larry's gonna come up and talk about a couple slides and really some good news on some of our ending fund balances.
Thanks for the acknowledgement. All right, so just a high level about the general fund. After we closed the book, we found out that 21-22 revenue is really in good shape. We are currently on 75.6 million, and our expenditure is just a little bit lower, about a couple million lower, which is now just 72.2 million. So with that note, there is a positive net change, which is a gain of 3.4 million. And with that, that brings up our fund balance up at the end of 21-22 to 14.9. But because we have to restrict a few things, of course, those unrestricted grants and funds that we got, we have to deduct that amount. And so now our unassigned ending fund balance is 12.0 million for 21-22. Now, moving on to the second slide or third slide, which is the reserve. Sorry, oh, there we go. So with fund balance up 14.9 of less restriction 2.9, our unassigned fund balance is 12.0 million. And that includes now adding the 17 fund 17, which is our special reserve, and that brings us up to 15.5 million total, which is a very healthy reserve. So right now, with expenditure comparable to the reserve comparable to expenditure, we're about 21.47. Now, if you compare that back in July when Randy did the adoption, that's around 19% we estimated, but then we closed the book at 21.47 million. So we gain about, I'm going to say greater.
Great, thanks, Larry. And some of the, it doesn't really show it in all the numbers, but some of the things like the phones was about 600, we had about 600,000 in budget for the phones. Well, the phones were a little delayed, so we had to put that into this fiscal year. So that's why some of these restrictions that Larry talked about got moved. So it looks like our ending fund balance is a little bit bigger, but because some of the required things we'd had set aside didn't happen until after July. The next slide talks about property taxes, and our final property tax collections for 21-22 was 55.6 million, about 4.85% growth over the prior year, which is good growth for us. Our projected tax collection, we just had a meeting about 2 weeks ago with the county assessor's office, and we have a 6.75% growth based on prior year. So our property taxes are looking really good, and we're right at pretty much what we estimated they would be. So our adopted budget is pretty much in line. The future out years, though, we have projected a 5% growth. We're going to be very cautious with that, and I always say optimistically cautious. Is we'll know more in November. We'll have another meeting with the county assessor's office, and that'll give us more detail about where we think we're going to be ending the year at. And then we'll also update our projections at first interim in December. So the good news is we'll have a chance to meet with the county in November, and then we can get any updated numbers for you at first interim in December. So a lot of the forms that Leo includes, a lot of forms that are just so many legal requirement forms. And over the years with all the GASBs, they've changed. We've had to add more and more things. The CEA and the GAN limit to change. Our GAN limit changed a little bit this year because inflation was higher. And then also just if you really look at what happened is, and I think, was this the first year that routine restricted maintenance cannot be included in the GAN limit? So routine restricted maintenance is about almost $3 million. Well, that was taken out. And so you can't include that in your GAN limit. So when you take that out and then add inflation, it looks like our spending is much higher, but it's really not. And then this is our, and I try to do this and every time we come to the board for slides to give you some key budget deadlines. Tonight, we're right here at unaudited actuals. We'll come back for first interim in December. Final audit report, we'll hope it's done before January. That's when we'll bring it to you, hopefully. Governance proposal for the 23-24. Hard to believe we're already thinking about that for next year. That will be in January. And then in February, March, we'll be looking at enrollment projections to see how many students we think are going to be coming into the TK and kindergarten program. Then we'll do second interim in March. Then we'll be meeting with the principals and talk about their site budget allocations. And then LCAP and budget adoption for 23-24 will be in June. next year. So that's a key budget deadlines that we have got going on. And then this is an action item. So tonight we're asking to approve the 21-22 unaudited actual.
Thank you. I don't see anybody here to want to address the board on this topic. Board members, any questions for Eric? The questions? Yes.
Just two questions. The first one is, our final tax collections, you said were 4.85%. Do you happen to remember what we had projected?
I have to look
Was it
at,
5% or was it 4.5%?
we projected at adoption 5%. But that's from the previous year, previous fiscal year.
Okay, so what do we project for the previous?
So for this year, we projected 5, but right now we're looking at 6.75. So we're actually doing better than we thought, which is good. But things could change by November.
And there's an, what's the other question? I'm sorry, I don't know what my other question was.
Any other questions? So this is an action item. If I get a motion to approve the 21-22 unauditable actions, unaudited action.
So moved.
Thank you, Vladimir. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Shelley. Moved by Vladimir, seconded by Shelley. Make it everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And then opposed. No, passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Good. All right.
Oh, let me
yes.
ask, 10th site, sequence update by Ms. McConnell. Thank you.
You. So I asked Randy if he could give us a little update on where we are, and I told him I'm happy to provide the update, but he provided the slides. So I thought it was great to bring it back to the board. A couple of these slides are slides from previous board meetings, but as you may hopefully know, that we are in the environmental impact review process right now as part of our CEQA. This slide is really just letting us know that this review will go through multiple iterations, opportunities for community members to provide input, and lots of opportunity for review as we move along the CEQA process. So for the 10th site right now, well, this is more of the visual, right? There's always a notice of preparation. They're working on the report right now, and then much later will be a notice of determination. But where we are to date, so in July, all of the impacted community received written letters. There was notice in the newspapers and all of that, that we were preparing for a CEQA study. And we did not receive a whole lot of feedback. We did get feedback from the city of Mountain View, from Caltrans, and from an indigenous group, local group, and he did not put it on here, but he also, we hosted an online meeting for people also to be able to provide input on the project. So the project of the EIR lists kind of the greatest possible impact. So we've talked about this idea that for this study, we're asking the folks to look at a max of 900 students from TK to 8. This provides us with a great flexibility in how we might use the site now and into the future. So it's important to really have that flexibility as we go into this project. The city of Mountain View is really interested in the potential of having artificial turf and lights to maximize the use of that shared facility space. So while there's been no formal agreement to this, built into the CEQA study is both traditional grass, no lights, all the way to artificial turf with lights as part of the study. And then you can see here that they continue to meet with the city staff around these pieces, and know that if we move forward with artificial turf and lights, that the city will pay for that difference in cost. Mountain View also provided some input on the sport field use. So Lisa Delphan, you can see here was the original, or probably the last schematic that you all had seen. And if you pay special attention to the fields, there was a baseball and a soccer field. They've now updated the layout of those fields to include a baseball, softball field, soccer field, and an additional field. If I remember correctly from Randy, this had something to do with like sun in the eyes for baseball. And then you can also see down here some bike parking was added as well based on that feedback. Caltrans wanted us to make sure that we were incorporating traffic and flow in the neighborhood as part of our study, which of course we were. And the Native American tribe wanted, or representatives want to make sure that when we get to the point of construction, should we find any artifacts, that we would notify their group and do what we would need to do for that. So want to make sure I can relay any questions you have about progress on CEQA to Randy. And really have been thinking about how do we move our process forward a little bit. I know we have the CEQA study happening, which is an important part of the process, but I would like to bring to you all kind of an update of where we were right before the pandemic hit. As we were in a kind of a deep community conversation process. And for my own mind, I need a little summary of where we were and what transpired. So I'm hoping to bring that back on the 19th to the group. So happy to hear any feedback and answer any questions and details about what would be helpful for you. And then any questions I can relay to Randy around the CEQA process if you have them.
Again, seeing no public comment walking to the front of the room. Any discussion, questions for Sandra on the CEQA study where we're up to about the next steps piece? So you come forward with the idea that the next step for us is a review where we left off in the conversation. Anything else you'd like to see in that conversation? That's great.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously, I think that's a good starting point, and then, I think we probably need to give you direction at that point. I think to the extent that there are alternatives in how we move forward, I think it's always a good idea to remind us what the staff require, what staff time
Yep.
requires.
I appreciate that.
So, just so that we have that, so we can factor that in as we're trying to give you direction. We don't tell you to do something that's going to take everybody 45 hours a week to
Right.
implement.
Great.
You know, fine. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, moving on to action item 5, California Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act.
Also known as CUPCA.
Yeah, no way I can do that.
You know, we used to have a presentation that had cupcakes on it.
There we go. That would help a little.
Where are our cupcakes?
Yeah.
I would help you somewhere. So yeah, tonight I want to do a brief overview of what is CUPCA and really why we feel that that Los Altos School District should adopt this resolution. The resolution we will bring back for the next meeting on the 19th. But tonight I want to go over a brief overview of CUPCA and then also do a review of 2 board policies about CUPCA and bid limits. So what is public works? Well, public works is really anything that a public agency must put out to bid, and it's usually meaning construction projects. And they must advertise anything competitively bid over $15,000. So that's anything dealing with construction, reconstruction, erection, alteration, renovation, improvement, painting, repainting, demolition, really almost everything that we do on the facility side of the house. Now, there are 2 limits though. There is the alteration and building things, which is a $15,000 bid limit. That has been the bid limit forever, and it's never changed. And so what happens is with inflation and so many other things, in my past experience, we said, gosh, if something breaks, you have to go to bid on it. And then when you have to go to bid on it, you have to advertise it, it delays projects, people get upset. And we said, is there a better way to do this? And then I have a lot of experience doing Kafka, so we say, gosh, we should probably do that in this district. And after talking to people, for example, one of the projects that we're gonna be talking about in the future is the Gardner Bullis shade structure project. Well, that is gonna be over the bid limit, so we'd have to go to bid on it. It would delay the project even further. But the second part of it is, you can't really, you have to do a sole source resolution. So a sole source means we like USA Shade Fabric. It's a company that makes the structures, make the fabric that goes on top. They're great. It's a pre-check design. CSA likes it. It's a good product. But if we go over the bid limit, then another person could say, oh, I've got an alternative project that you know, a different product that I like, and then you can't get the product you want. So then you have to pass another sole source resolution to the board, and you don't want to bring those to the board too often. So now you're spinning your wheels, taking longer to get products approved. So the state legislature changed it out. But let me talk about another thing about bid limits. The other bid limit is maintenance. Now, maintenance, this gets adjusted every year for inflation. We'll get a letter from California Department of Education that says, okay, it's now, when I first started, this number was like in the 70s, 78,000. It's gone up every year. They bring it up. Now it's up to 99,000. So 99,000 is mostly for purchasing materials, supplies. Anything that you buy that is, usually you do an RFP process if you're buying certain things. But anytime we buy things, supplies, maintenance supplies, educational related supplies, the bid limit's really 99,000. Okay, yeah, but maintenance can be small things like maintenance. So if you're doing seal coating the parking lots, that's considered maintenance. It's not construction. That bid limit's $99,000. When Marlene got all the parking lots restriped before school started, I think it was about $34,000. That's maintenance. You don't need to go to bid on that. That's maintenance. That bid limit is 99,000. So we're good. When we start getting into bigger things like an HVAC unit breaks, so if the HVAC unit in here broke, it'd be really uncomfortable. But it would probably cost us, I'm going to say $25,000, $30,000 to replace it. You have to go to bid on it. But then there's a supply chain issue. It might even take longer to get to the unit. So the idea is with Kafka, you can speed things up a little bit. It gives you more flexibility. So the definition of maintenance is really routine, reoccurring things that happen all the time. We want to paint the side of this building so the wood will last longer, so it doesn't delaminate. And you ever seen that show, Something About Mary? And remember her friend, Mary's friend, was out in the backyard sunning herself. And she had this big like metal shield and she was, you know, really leathery and wrinkly. Well, the sun is really not our friend, right? The sun is, she looked nice and tan, but not really, right? But what happens is if you're not maintaining your asphalt, your roofs, your paint, things will not last as long. So the idea is that is what maintenance is. Maintenance is ongoing and recurring things that we're doing every year. Okay, minor repainting is considered maintenance, but if you paint a whole building, that's considered public works, right? So there's all these case laws that go back of what is maintenance, what is public works. If you resurface the streets of highways at less than 1 inch, that's considered maintenance. So sometimes you put a seal coat on, or you'll do some gravel and tar and gravel, that's maintenance. But when you have big old potholes in your whole parking lot, that's construction. Landscape maintenance is pretty much exempt. Mowing, watering, trimming plants, trimming trees, servicing irrigation systems, that's considered ongoing maintenance. That element is the 99,000. Okay, so what is Kafka? It was enacted in 1983. It allowed public agencies to use their own people to perform a public works project. So we could use our own maintenance staff, and we have a very limited amount of staff members to do the things. So we do a lot of contractors that hire things to fix most of the things we do. But our maintenance staff are there to use the routine maintenance things, right? To replace an HVAC unit, we don't have a crane, we don't have all the equipment to do that. We hire people to do those things. Okay, it provides an alternative bid limit for public works projects, and it really simplifies the procedure for emergency work. And we can just go to the board and you pass a 4/5 resolution, and we can get a project sent. It's an emergency. We have to get this thing fixed. HVAC's not working, it's very hot or whatever. So these are, or there's a water damage and things like that. Okay, projects of 60,000 or less can be performed by district personnel or by negotiated contract. So negotiated contract means we can have a list of bidders that we normally work with, that we know and trust, and we negotiate, okay, how much for you to come out and replace this asphalt? 40,000. Then we call another vendor, 45,000. Okay, 40,000 gets it. It's negotiated. They send us a proposal. It's done. We'll try to bring the contract to the board for approval. If it's an emergency, we'll get the work done and then we'll bring it back for ratification after. That's usually kind of how it goes. But now if it's over 200,000 or less, it can be by informal. So we don't have to advertise in the town crier or other trade journals. We can just basically send an email to everybody that's on our bidders list. It could be 25 electrical contractors. They'll get the email and say, oh, Los Altos is bidding out this lighting project. I'll bid on that. They send us an email proposal, or they send us, and we say the proposals are due by 2 p.m. They drop it off. That's fine. Anything over 200,000, we have to do formal bidding. In the paper, you have to advertise it for 2 consecutive weeks. And you have to have bid documents when they're due. They have to have a bid bond, payment performance bond, all these things. So for example, the lighting project had to be bid out. And so there's some lighting that's really substandard at Block, Springer, and Almond. And so that was a huge number. It was almost a $400,000 project, but we had to bid it out. And the lights weren't available, so that we're bidding that out right now. The bids are actually, we're gonna have a bid walk next week with the contractors. So we're gonna invite a bunch of contractors. They're gonna show up. They'll bid on the project. We've already advertised in the paper. And then when we get the bids in, we've done public contract code, we followed it. So we'll get the bids in, and then I think October 3rd is going to bring that contract to the board for approval. They can order the lights and hopefully we'll get them installed by the end of the year. So that's kind of a perfect example of kind of the sequencing that has to happen. The other thing is a lot of projects, sometimes we don't know if we've got money for them and we do them at the last minute, but by doing it at the last minute, you have to follow this and it kind of messes things up. So this will give really Marlene and maintenance a lot more flexibility to get smaller projects done that aren't like huge construction projects, but smaller maintenance related projects. It's pretty helpful. The governing board will ask you next week, we'll bring the resolution to you for approval. We'll have to have the governing board approve a resolution to be subject to CUTCA. Then we'll file the resolution to the state controller. We'll give the state controller a letter and shows the approved resolution. And that immediately we're already, once we send that letter, we're subject to CUTCA. Then we invite bidders to be on our bidders list for each calendar year. And then we will create an updated contractors list every January 1st. We have a website called Quality Bidders, and all of our contractors can sign up for this. They get on our thing, Farhat Purchasing will go over to make sure they have insurance, a license, workers' compensation, that they pay prevailing wages, which are critical. So unfortunately, the reason why school construction and things cost so much, we have to pay union wage, which is prevailing wage. And so that's a perfect example. General public works, they must pay prevailing wages. Payment bond is required. So anything over 25,000, Ed code says you have to have payment performance bonds. And these are bonds that guarantee if the project, if the contractor walks away, the bonding company will give us money to pay for somebody else to do the work, right? And that person's that owns their license, most likely, right? Fingerprinting must be done, and then field back requirement is for DSA, and that's the field back that created DSA. So all these things are still required, but it makes it a little bit more easier to manage, and I think it's gonna give us a lot more flexibility. So that's a real quick summary of CUPCA. I instituted it in my previous district and it's been successful. It just streamlines things. We follow public contract code and it makes things quicker. It's actually easier to follow. Plus, we have people on our bidders list that we know they're pre-qualified. And if we ever need something, we can reach out to them directly. So we felt it's been very successful for us in the past, and we think it'll be the same for Los Altos. No pictures tonight, sorry.
No restriping.
No, not tonight, but we will.
So, I don't see anyone wanting to provide public comments or is there any questions or Eric on this one? So, yeah, thank you. Looking forward to seeing Sandra.
All right, well, you did your heavy reading over the long weekend. You have several first reads of updated board policies. A lot of these are around new pieces that we need to implement, either around our new meals program or around period products. There's all sorts of interesting tidbits in the new board policy updates. They'll come back to you next week for approval, but today is your first read, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
No one rushing to address the board on this one. If there are, if board have any questions or comments on any of the policy updates. you wanna discuss? Great. And we'll look forward to seeing those next, if we have any questions
Yep,
for
you
them to you. and everything
Yes,
like that.
please.
Okay, that's our last action item on the agenda, board and administrative comments. Terry? Anything?
I just like to mention that we've had a team of staff going around to each of the sites and administering nibbles. That's the reading assessments for this year. And I've heard really positive comments about they're able to do the whole entire school in one day. So I'm gonna thank Claire Griffin and then the team of reading interventionists, and then the student those assessments. Excited to see the results, so.
Eric, anything?
I just want to thank our team here. It feels so great to be supported, and Sandra and Carrie and Aaron were bouncing ideas off each other. I said I need a thought partner, right? And so it's kind of nice to be able to bounce ideas off each other and help support each other. And then we have a business staff meeting on Friday, and Carrie does these great, I guess it's like an icebreaker, and it's like connection thing, and you get to know, it's, there's like questions, and you get to like, hey, what's your favorite vacation spot? And it's a cool icebreaker kind of connection piece that we're gonna work with. So I'm gonna steal some of hers when I ask for help. But I appreciate that, because sometimes we're so busy talking about nuts and bolts that we're not making those connections with our staff and with our people. And I think that's real important for everybody to have connections. Because I think we're so busy running around. Sometimes I check in with Larry, Larry, how are you doing? You know, I do want to know, I don't want our people burning out. I also want to make sure that we're all, everybody's working really hard, but I also want to make sure we're connecting with the people too. So I want to thank Carrie and Sandra, really, and everybody. It's been nice. I feel like we're connecting really well. So it's great.
I'll just add on to that. This week, the three of us continue our listening tour. Tomorrow, we're going to Gardner Bullis to meet with the staff at lunchtime. And then on Thursday, we'll be here at Covington. And it's really been great to connect with folks and have our new team meet our teachers and our staff at our school sites.
Sean, anything? Sorry.
First PTA council meetings of the year coming this week.
I went to Egan's back to school night. It was full of amazing amount of energy from all parties, teachers, administrators, and parents, just excited to be there and be going to classes. I did Women's Equality Day event put on by the Santa Clara County a commission of the seventh women, is that right? Something like that. Which was great. It was Cindy Chavez was the lead speaker, and then also Lucas Ramirez was speaking as an ally. He's a mayor of Mountain View. I had a ambassadors committee, and then I also went to Egan and Covington's PTA meetings last week, and I nearly forgot I had gone to this school safety event put on by ALF, and it was, I think we may have all been invited to it. Either way, put on by ALF, but Grace Mall was running it along with another trustee, Marianne Wong was there. And it was interesting. The first question they had was, what do you think of when you think of school safety? And of course, all of us, the first thing we think of is physical school safety. But then all of us all came to a point where it's like, it's not just school physical safety, it's making sure everybody's mentally safe, and that it's a culture of we and a culture of caring. It seems like all of these school districts participating, we're at a area where they wanted to all focus on making sure we keep it safe from the mental side. Anyway, it was a good session, and that's it.
I went to Gardner Bullis back to school night. It was good. It was great. People are getting together. I noted with a little bit of disappointment that I knew exactly 2 teachers. And I don't think I recognized more than 3 parents. Several hundred, so I was.
Aged out.
Anything
That was it.
Okay, great. The only thing I'm gonna ask you, Sandra, to maybe look into doing moving forward is, on the public radio station. There's been a lot of discussion about issues in public schools that come off negative about how things are running. And it'd be nice if we could have a way to, if you could think about a way to address those. Because I think a lot of what I was hearing didn't apply, but I think a lot of our parents listen to these programs. And I want to make sure that we're in a position to respond to things.
Yeah.
Just things to think about. And that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Adjourned.